You may know the stories of the furnaces, the gas chambers, the train cars to Auschwitz, and the cruelty of the Nazis in general. But if you thought they were the most brutal, you haven't heard of Japanese prisoner of war camps. Welcome to Nutty History, and today let's find out about the inhumanity that took place in Imperialist Japan's POW camps. You ever drank too much water and then you can feel it sloshing around in your stomach? Pretty uncomfortable, right? Well, imagine this. You are secured in a prone position and are bound as water is forced through your mouth and nostrils, filling up your lungs and stomach until you lost consciousness. Japanese guards of POWs called it water cure. However, it was far from any cure we have ever heard of. And if that made you feel a little queasy, filling their prisoners with water to the point they'd burst was just the beginning. Next, they would apply pressure, even if it meant jumping upon victim's abdomen to force the water out. They did it to revive him, only to repeat the process afterwards. Japanese guards were quite fond of punishing their prisoners of war physically and subjecting them to excruciating pain in the name of unavoidable necessity. They'd force prisoners of war to hold a heavy stone above their heads for many hours. They would throw them into small cells with little to no food or water, or hurl rocks at them from above while prisoners worked in cuttings below. Guards would also beat anyone heavily if they thought the prisoner was not working up to their speed. For sadistic Japanese guards, the misery of prisoners of war was nothing but a source of entertainment, and they didn't even care if they were committing war crimes. Additionally, they tortured any brave soul who tried to escape, or prisoners they thought held crucial information to gain them. They were placed under a strict regimen designed to make them break, be it solitary confinement, blindfolding, or compulsory calisthenics, or all combined together. It was all meant to break one's spirit. How slowly can you cut a person? Puncturing is generally one of the quickest methods to kill a person, but if done slowly, it can be excruciating. Bamboo is a plant capable of growing a couple of inches per year, and for Japanese POW camps, it was a natural tool to slowly harm and eventually end prisoners' lives. Prisoners were tied in a kneeling position over a piece of growing bamboo with a sharpened end. As the bamboo grew over days, it would cut into him, real slow. The piercing would happen over days, making its way through skin, and then flesh, muscles, bones, and finally organs, making the prisoner feel the bamboo making its way inside him, little by little, non-stop, for days. This horrifying agony would also cause gangrene and the eventual loss of limbs. Some prisoners were tied over a bed of sharpened bamboo shoots and left to suffer as the plant worked its way through their body, ever so slowly, eventually killing them. Now, if you think that wasn't possible and is an exaggeration, a 2008 investigation by Mythbusters determined that the shoots are capable of penetrating through several inches of ballistic gelatin in less than 3 days. Japanese captors were ruthless about enforcing hard labor on Allied prisoners of war. Already malnourished and ill, prisoners were employed in inhumane working environments at shipyards, mines, and factories, exacerbating their poor conditions. Worst-case scenario prisoners were sent to work on the Thai-Burma Railway, connecting Bangkok to Rangoon. The 415-kilometer railway, constructed between 1942 and 1943, resulted in the deaths of more than 100,000 laborers, which included at least 13,000 Allied prisoners of war. Also known as the Death Railway, more than 60,000 Allied prisoners of war were forced to work from dawn until dusk to accelerate the completion of the transportation system. These prisoners had to cut through mountains, build bridges, and lay tracks without breaks and until they collapsed. They received only 1 day off every 11. That means they were performing manual labor for an estimated 100 hours per week. Kind of makes 40 hours a week look kind of insignificant, right? After the Battle of Bataan in 1942, the Japanese army had to relocate surrendered Allied forces for housing and exploitation for labor. In 1942, between 60,000 to 80,000 Allied prisoners of war began marching from Mariveles to San Fernando. They were loaded onto trains to Campus train station, and from there they were forced to march again to Camp O'Donnell, which makes a total of approximately 70 miles by foot. During the march, they were provided with little to no food or water. Despite being intended for labor, their lives meant nothing for their captors, as asking for food or water would result in receiving a bullet. During that march, it is estimated that 18,000 Filipino prisoners and 650 American prisoners died. During the Second World War, such marches were not uncommon. Once the Allied invasion became imminent in 1945, the Japanese sought to move prisoners of war into the mountains to prevent an easy liberation. That was called the Sandakan Death March. From January till March, a total of 470 prisoners of war who suffered serious illnesses began marching with limited rations. Only 6 were still alive by June. Then came the second round that started in June, whereupon out of 536 prisoners of war, just 183 survived. The final round consisted of 75 prisoners, with not a single one lasting beyond 50 kilometers of the journey. Unit 731 was a covert research and development division of the Japanese Army. Like their Axis allies, the Nazis, the Japanese Empire was inclined to use enclosed prisoners for the purposes of military and medical research. They were seeking the understanding of the limits of human physical endurance and used Allied POWs as guinea pigs in the barbaric practice of non-consensual human testing. Prisoners were typically not given anesthesia, and they were forced to experience everything that was done to them throughout the entire duration of experiments and afterwards. They were injected with animal blood, commonly horse, as a test for blood transfusions without any precautions, to explore the possibility of using non-human blood as a substitute for increasingly scarce supplies of human blood on the front lines. Needless to say, not a lot of subjects survived this foolish idea. To study the consequences of battlefield medicine, Unit 731 also performed medical amputations of certain limbs on various subjects. Once limbs were removed, the unit observed the patients to determine how long it might take for wounds to attract the infection. What was the tolerance threshold of the body to increasingly large dismemberments or for them to succumb? It has also been recorded that limbs were surgically altered out of curiosity, and then the scientists of Unit 31 attempted to reattach them to the wrong parts of the body or freeze them to test frostbite effects. They chopped limb after limb of POWs until just the head and the torso of the still living prisoner remained. In short, they were playing Frankenstein's monster with living people. To understand the effects of a wide range of environmental conditions, which includes pressure and radiation, they would place victims in high-pressure chambers until their eyeballs popped out. They also exposed a large number of POWs to lethal X-rays. While Unit 731 was using POWs like guinea pigs inside their labs, the Japanese Army was using them outside as practice targets. They'd be tied to stakes to have jars of cyanide thrown at them. They would get set on fire with flamethrowers while they were alive, and be blasted by tank cannons and grenades. In addition to that, prisoners were also consciously exposed to diseases such as the plague, typhoid, or syphilis, and then they were monitored to determine the effects of prolonged exposure and observe the deterioration of the afflicted. So, what do you think? Who was more brutal, the German Nazis or the Imperialist Japanese? Tell us in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, and of course, thanks for watching Nutty History.